There we go. Oh, what good transitions here. I used every one that was available here. Sort of a fun thing, but I've forgotten how to use Keynote other than just push the button. So here we go. More of my political jokes. Well, this isn't a joke. This is a quote. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, how true it is. How we've gotten here to the situation we are by concentrating on the well-being of our kind at the expense of everything else. But I don't want to go there. Yeah, okay, well, I guess I'm going there. Care for your own at the cost of others. Yes, I remember now what I hear. And so it's like an onion here. We're getting out. Care for others too little. So it's disproportionate. Okay, yours and not yours. And it's easy to project, despise, and even kill others, you know, who cast our problems onto not me. And me usually means not you now today. And care for everything else, not at all, like the earth and the environment and other species. And we've essentially become brains in vats because all of this is very well hidden from us. And, you know, we think that cornucopia and those grocery stores are just going to be like they are everywhere. And there's no end in sight and growth and whippy-doo. Okay? And what caused humans to succeed is causing humans to fail. So this is all the road to hell quote. So these are all implications to the road to hell. Okay, enough mindful political jokes. Okay, and here's a quote. I love this one, and it's not too commonly known. I don't remember where I first heard it, but it's appropriate quite often. And that is, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, what do? You bury them in bullshit. So you purposely, in fact, I think this is a lead-in to my next one, you purposely obfuscate the situation. But in that obfuscation, you impress them so much. In fact, that makes me think of another joke. I might stop here before I continue. Yeah, I'll try to tell it briefly because it could be quite a long joke. In fact, it makes me think of two about the, if you heard of the turtles. It's turtles all the way down. I won't tell that one, but if you know the punchline, that's it. The joke is the science editor goes to a speaker about relativity, and now it's his time to write an article on the expertise of this speaker talking about on this subject matter, of which he's very familiar. And actually, there were three speakers. So he spoke first of the first speaker. He says, well, yeah, the speaker gave everything that is commonly known about relativity in simple terms, and I would just fate him as just a fair speaker, nothing exceptional. The center speaker, he was much better because he went into, even in the same period of time, he went into subject matter much deeper at a much faster rate, made it very clear to people, and hit some esoteric points that were difficult to understand, but he explained them well. His last speaker, he was absolutely excellent because he was so over my head, even I didn't understand what he said. So the whole deal is the less you understand. I'm a cornucopia here. The more, the less you understand, the more impressive it is because you're buried in bullshit rather than dazzled with the brilliance. So what that reminds me of is this is back in grammar school, and this is sort of the conundrum. It's the more you learn, the more you know. The more you know, the more you forget. The more you forget, the less you know. The less you know, the less you forget. The less you forget, the more you know. The more you know. So it goes around in a circle there. I think I told them right. So, and if I can get back on track, I think I forget one there. If I can't pull it back, no, I can't. Yeah, I can't. It's about the turtle. See, yeah, no, I didn't tell that. So here we are. So, askew obfuscation. And I love this because it means don't make things complicated or keep them simple. And this is obviously not saying that obfuscate. Obfuscate is a good word in special situations where you're purposely, in fact, when you bury them in bullshit, you're obfuscating really what you're trying to explain. You're trying to just, make it unclear. And askew means avoid, so it means avoid being unclear. But that's not well known what that means. Oh, this one I love, and this one came from the movie The Corporation, or at least that's when I first heard it. I believe it's probably the what they call the tagline too that they use. See if I can remember that right now. Yeah, a corporation has no soul that you can redeem, nor no body that you can incarcerate. So, Enron and all those crooks there. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I have each one mentioned here. Yeah, three. These are three New Yorker cartoons. There was a whole book of New Yorker cartoons I went through, but there were three that were memorable, but I'll have to describe them to you. And this first one is, think of two young, very professional, eligible women at a fancy luncheon restaurant in New York, and they're talking to each other. So one woman says to the other, she says, "At first I became a vegetarian for health purposes, but then it became more of a moral issue. But now I just do it to piss off people." She didn't say piss off. I did to annoy people. New Yorker wouldn't say piss off. Now I just do it to annoy people. Oh, I love that one. Okay, another one. They're like two deer in Central Park, which would like never happen, but it doesn't have to necessarily be New York City. But think of two deer in a small park with high rises all around, and one deer says to the other, and they say, we have a population problem. Yes, yeah, if that isn't called the pot calling the kettle black. And the last one is, think of a palatial mansion with very high ceilings, and very spacious, and the old husband and wife sitting there, the wife just knitting, the husband reading the Wall Street Journal, got his face buried in it with a cigar, and then he looks up at his wife and he says, "I would never accept welfare." I mean, he could never conceive of that happening. You know what I'm thinking too is that my picture-in-picture is going to hide these, so the face is going to become more important. But let me continue here. Stop the friggin' mindful political jokes already. Let's get going here. Oh, this is going to be a long one here. I think I have more bullets. Yeah, I do have more bullets. Yeah, so this is a very good joke, and it's it has several interpretations too. It's very, very good. So let me tell you the way I first heard it, and it's highly embellished. So, and it'll be a long version here. I hope you haven't heard it before. So, a man and his wife marry very early, in fact, as teenagers, and they have, their children and their problems. The children eventually leave home, and their marriage really goes to hell, and he's really been in hell all his life. In fact, there's another joke, when a young man gets married, he doesn't know what true happiness is, and then when he's married, it's too late. So anyway, this really starts getting violent. I mean, both of them start getting violent. They always argue and they hate each other. And so finally, he's an IRA member. Finally, one time, he just pulls out his shotgun and he gives her both barrels right in the face. He's just had it with her. So He pleads guilty for mercy on the court. He just tries to tell the people what he had to deal with her. They didn't want to listen, but they, being the wimps they are, they gave him life in prison with no possibility of parole. And God, he's only in his late 40s, so he's going to have a long time in there. So. Anyway, when he arrives, they put him on, the wing that is just a lifers here. And, it's important for him to get along with people. So he's very careful on everything that he does. He doesn't want to become anybody's bitch either. So he sort of has to hold his own. So, but what he notices at night is every once in a while, out of a clear blue sky when things are quiet, after lights are out, somebody will just yell out a number. I mean, really yell it out aloud, and there'll always be some kind of a laugh as a response. And sometimes it varies. Sometimes there'll be hardly any laughs, and sometimes it'll just be the guy that yells out the number, and sometimes everybody will laugh, and even the cellmate will laugh sometimes. So after a couple of nights of this, he says, hey, what's the thing with the numbers here? What's going on? He says, well, most of the guys here have been here for a long time, and they're not going anywhere, so we've pretty much done everything and told everything, and we used to tell jokes at night, but it was a long process, so we got some of the boards. But we found this book in the library. It's called 1001 Prison Jokes, and it's just a cornucopia of funny jokes that are appropriate for everybody in our wing. So we started telling those jokes, but over time we eventually told all 1001 of them. So when it started coming time to repeat them, it just was going too slow. So we knew all the numbers to all the jokes, so we just started telling the numbers, and the people that liked the jokes, then they would respond, if they thought it was funny, and it would speed up the process because we could tell more jokes that way. He says, "Oh God, that's oh God, amazing!" So he goes to the library, and sure enough, here's this book, 1001 Prison Jokes, and he's never heard any of them. Well, he might have heard a few of them, but most of them are brand new to him, and they're hilarious. I mean, he didn't know there were so many jokes, but I guess, when people have time in prison, they can think of a lot of stuff. So over a week or two, he started writing down the numbers of his favorite jokes and committing them to memory. He could read them off, but he just remembered their numbers, and so he then picked his well, he had a list of 10 favorites that he could rattle off, but he decided, well, he's going to pick his top 2 here, and if the first one's successful, he's going to go with the second. So anyway, one night, and he waits for two other people to go off, and after they go off, it seems to be quiet again. He waits like 30 seconds. So then he says, "Okay, well, here I go. I'm going to go out with my all-time favorite joke." So he yells out, 427! And no response. Nothing. And he's never heard no response at all. This is the funniest joke he's ever heard. So he yells out, saying, 427! Like, nobody gets it. God, how can it be? He's embarrassed here. He's trying to make friends here. I mean, the people must think that's a joke. So he says, well, he goes to the second joke, 531! Oh God, he goes in panic. 531! Nothing. So not even his cellmate. So he turns to his cellmate. Those are the funniest jokes I ever heard. Why isn't anybody laughing? So the cellmate says, well, some guys know how to tell a joke and some guys don't. That's all there is to it. I love that joke. So I hope the punchline was worth the wait. So now let me see what I have next here on the site. Now, funny enough, I saw a program about Russia and the Stalin era, and actually the origin of the joke had nothing to do with saving time. It had to do with prisoners in the Gulag. They were often tortured by their guards. You know, guards were very cruel. And you know, if the guards heard any jokes about Stalin, they could, if they were known, if they were known to hear a Stalin joke, and if they didn't punish the prisoner, you know, they were in trouble. You know, by other guards. So the prisoners in the Gulag, they took their Stalin jokes and they gave them numbers. So that way it was like a secret code. So it really had nothing to do with saving time. So I found that very interesting that it was diverted to this other meaning, because that's a very good punchline. And I guess that punchline's appropriate for whether it's a Stalin joke or whether it's just to save time. Now, what I now use for this joke, in fact, I offered to be a marriage counselor between a Ukrainian couple, and them, you know, knowing the culture very well. I don't remember whether they knew this joke and this diversity of origins, but I used it as an example of when they were arguing. I found that they would basically just, you know, it would be the same kind of exchange, and they would turn off to each other. Oh, you do that. Oh, you do this. So, you know, I use this joke to mean, well, you ought to number all the complaints that you have of each other, so you can have them on a list then. And then when you go on to your complaints, you can just save time, because, and let me do another digression here. I was making the point that the definition of communication, and this was the really point I was making as a marriage counselor, unfortunately it didn't fly, is you take information from where it is and you have it transported to where it isn't. Okay, so that's true communication. When I tell you something that you don't know, I'm truly communicating something new to you, and you are, you know, enriched by that, or repulsed by it, whatever. But anyway, if I tell you the same thing over and over, you know, as you hear your maybe your father's jokes too often, you know, I say, oh, here we go again. So that was why I used that joke in that situation. And I might just mention in closing, and try a soft transition here, there was another Russian, and this was more of a visual joke, so I'll have to describe it, having to do with the long waits in line. And there was a butcher shop in which there was a long line going out the door, and it focused in on one lady that, you know, had many pictures of her proceeding, and she finally gets up to the front of the line. Of course, there's all these clean white butcher, you know, slanted glass cabinets with nothing in them. Then there's this butcher with this perfectly white outfit and no blood on it at all. And so she asked, "Do you have any cheese today?" And so the butcher says, no, this is the butcher shop where we don't have any meat. The cheese store that doesn't have any cheese is across the street. Oh, I wonder if I have this other one. If I don't, I'll put it down here. Oh, yeah. So, well, this is just an expression. Stop blowing sunshine up my ass. I love that from, that was the Valley of the Dolls, I remember, from way back then. But there was another, I'll tell this other Russian joke that I remember. So, a man dies and goes to St. Peter at the gate, but he fails horribly, so he's thrown down into hell. And when he enters hell, he sees after the entrance that there are two lines, tables, and one says Russian hell, and the other one says American hell. So Uh, so he doesn't know what to go in. So he goes to there's also an information booth. So he goes to the information booth. He says, how come there are two lines? He says, well, one's for American Hell and one's... but you can take your pick. You can go on either line you want. He says, well, what's in American Hell? He says, well, in American Hell, you boil in oil for eternity. He says, well, what about Russian Hell? He says, well, it's the same thing. You boil in oil for eternity. He says, well, how come there are so many people lined up on the Russian line and nobody at the American line? He says, well, you know, in Russia, some days they don't have any oil. So that was the deal. Here we go. Okay. Respectful religious joke. I should put respectful in quotes here. And this is a quote here. There are no atheists in foxholes. That's from my father. I remember him saying that. Yeah. When the time comes. In fact, that reminds me too of W.C. Fields is reputed to have said on his deathbed, he was caught reading the Bible, and somebody called him on that, and he says, "I'm looking for a loophole." I believe that to be true. Okay, yeah, a little boy here. Oh, there's two jokes here. I remember this. Yeah, so these are little boy jokes, and yeah. And this joke comes from my mother, from, gee, I can remember this from the 40s. And this would be like the dirtiest kind of joke, risque kind of joke that would ever come from my mother's lips. So, a mother asked her little boy to go shopping for him at the grocery store. Never happened today, right? So he does, and he does everything just right. He has the list just filled, and he's carrying the bag of groceries. And as he's running home, he sees some puddles here. So he starts to sort of play in the puddles, but being careful to carry the groceries. But actually, he slips, and he falls, and he drops the bag in the mud puddle. And he gets so upset, he says, "Ah, Jesus Christ, God Almighty," from a little kid. And just as he says that, a man of the robe, of the cloth, is walking by. And he says, "What did I hear you say, my son?" And the little boy looks up and he says, "Cheese and crackers got all muddy." Okay. Now, here's another funny one here. So, a preacher is making an emphatic sermon here about how important it is to have faith at the foundation of your belief. And he asks different people for what is meant by faith. And he finally comes up to a little boy. And the little boy, "What do you know faith to mean?" And the little boy says, faith is when you believe something you know that ain't true." I like that one. That came from my guru. I have to give him credit if I remember where they came from. Okay, so the Pope finally passed away. And let's say the current Pope, because he's the one that's plagued with well, they're all plagued with sex problems, but anyway. And he meets St. Peter at the gate, and he says, "Well, of course you can go in. You know, I don't even have to question you about that." He says, "Well, I would really like to see the man. I'd really like to see God, because this problem we've been having with the church and the sex and celibacy is just driving me crazy." He says, "Okay, well, we don't grant it to everyone, but Pope, you're certainly honored to, yes," and he's right this way. So he leads him into the man's office, and Pope is in there for maybe 15 minutes, and when he comes out, St. Peter sees the Pope is just, he's just shaking. He just seems like he has a real, like, epiphany. So St. Peter goes up there and says, what is it, Pope? What's going on? He says, it wasn't celibate, it was celebrate. So, this whole thing of celibacy in the church was a misinterpretation. That's what it's saying. But, understand me if I'm right here, but from what I'm understanding is that celibacy wasn't implemented to the church until about 4th century BCE, and it was mainly because that the estates of the priests were not going back to the church, but were going back to the wife. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm understanding. Okay, as we continue here, yes, okay, newsflash. Newport Jazz Festival this year, yes. They had a random drug test, and they found 2 of the participants in one of the bands to have been abusing drugs, and so they were immediately expelled for lifetime from all jazz festivals and rock and roll festivals. Never happened. I love, in fact, this makes me think of Bill Maher's joke. I love this one. Of course, he's a big supporter of marijuana. But on this occasion, he was supporting marijuana, but he was distinguishing marijuana, which I think rightly so, from all other categories of drugs, because you know, many have many negative, if not fatal, consequences. So, in distancing himself from these drugs, he says, yeah, you know, cocaine, everything that comes from the opium plant, I mean, amphetamines, they all lead you to the same place. So don't try them. Don't go there. Very addictive. And then, as a final thought, he says, but I'll tell you something. They certainly haven't hurt my CD collection. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, how true that is. That's the beauty of his humor, as always. So true to its core. Oh, this one I loved here. Oh, this is very short. So, this is what's the difference between a Harley Davidson and a Hoover vacuum cleaner? Da, 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 da. The location of the dirt bag. Oh, look. It's got to be one of my favorites there. Okay, this one ain't bad either. So a drunk is driving home here, and of course he's driving very poorly. Cop pulls him over. He says, okay, buddy, where are you going? He says, officer, I am going to a sermon about the consequences of alcohol abuse. And the cop says, now who is giving a sermon on alcohol abuse at 3 o'clock in the morning? And he said, the drunk says, my wife. Being honest. Okay, bear jokes here. I got several here. Okay, so you can't outrun a bear. So a young man and an old man are walking through the forest, a heavy forest in Alaska, and they start seeing bear scat all over the place, and claws up high on trees. So the old man is starting to worry because they're 5 miles from town. He says, the young man, he says, I'm starting to worry about these grizzlies here. He says, God, if we come across a grizzly, you know, no way can we outrun a grizzly. He says, maybe we should turn back. The young man says, nah, don't worry about it. So a couple of times he brings this up, and the other young guy says, "No, don't worry. God, I am worried about it." He says, "Why are you worried about it?" He says, "Well," the young man says, "Well, I might not be able to outrun the bear, but I can certainly outrun you." Then this one isn't quite as funny, but it's sort of cute. So a couple is going into the ranger's office to find out about what they should do for bear protection and camping out in the wild. So the ranger tells them, you know, the litany of things to do about their food, but he also says, well, you should take some of these little bells here and put them on your clothes, because that way you'll never surprise a bear, and that way they'll know you're coming, and you know, you shouldn't startle them. And he says, okay, well, we'll do that. Is there any other advice? He says, yeah, well, if you see any bear scat in the area, you should be particularly cautious. He says, well, what's the bear scat look like? He says, well, it's got these little bells in it. Okay, we're finally at the end here. Concluding expressions. I hope I got all my machines going right. Okay. Youth is wasted on the young. Oh, what true. You only find out that when you're old. And you only find that out. And the first time you find out, too, that youth isn't an inherent aspect of your character is a rude awakening. And this is what is one of my father's expression. It's when you have a complicated situation of you know, pros and negatives and impacts. He always liked to say, well, it all goes into the pot when you make the soup. You know, you have to consider all the consequences at once, and then make up your mind. And this little punchline is on one of my other videos about my late night infomercial about how to make a small fortune in stained glass, and the solution to that is the way you make a small fortune in stained glass or whatever a business is to start with a large fortune. Then you end up with a small one. And this is just, this isn't humor, I guess. This is just an appropriate closing statement that is, I try to be the person that my dog thinks that I am. And I'm going, this is one of my father's favorites, is he would say, I'm taking you for a long walk on a short pier.